right. This is my favorite part. We are live, and that participant number is starting to like tick away. I hope everyone is doing well this Thursday. If you are anywhere near Florida, it is gross and rainy, and we're waiting for a storm to come into the Gulf. But we have a great conversation for you today. The participant number is just going to keep climbing. We're going to let that go for a little while before we start. As always with these calls, make sure that you use the chat. Let us know who you are, how you're doing, so we can welcome you on the call. Look at Sarah, first one there. Sarah has been on all of our calls from Ithaca. Good to see you, Sarah. Michael from FN Tours was a panelist for us a couple weeks ago. Thank you, Michael, for being on. And Dr. Kunal also has been on all of our marketing calls and all of our trade calls from India. Good to see you again. It'll just keep coming. Kristen Esposito, how are you, my friend? I hope you're doing well. So it has been a crazy week. A lot of, you know, if COVID wasn't enough, we have some other things going on in the world that will take some time, and I know everyone's been thinking about in general, our friends and our colleagues and the human race. So I hope everyone's doing well and talking with who you need to talk to get through what's going on in the world. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists because I know that I promised them that we would end in an hour, and I know that everyone is going to have a ton of questions for this particular group. So today we are going to talk about the future of events. States are opening up, industries are opening up. What does that look like for us, and what are the changes we can expect, and how do we move forward in it? So I'm pretty stoked right now because everyone on this panel I have worked with very closely at some point in my career. I have sat on boards, I have sat on committees. One person on this call even hired me twice. So, you know, I mean, it's pretty awesome to have everyone here. So first, let me introduce Carylann Assante, the CEO, President and CEO of the Student Youth Travel Association. Thank you for being here today.
Good to be here.
Malcolm Smith. I feel like I'm playing Hollywood Squares every time. So down in my bottom left-hand corner, Malcolm Smith is the Senior VP of Business Development for U.S. Travel and the General Manager of IPW. Thank you for being here. Love your backdrop, by the way.
Thank you. Well, it seems relevant since last night would have been the closing event in Las Vegas under the brand new canopy of the Fremont Street Experience. So I brought a little bit of that to the call today.
I love it, and hopefully we get to see that next year. Pete Pantuso, President and CEO of the American Bus Association. Always have loved that show and am thrilled that you were on the call. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Sherry. Thanks for having us.
And down at the bottom of the screen, or at least mine, Will Seccombe, our President and CEO of Connect Travel. Sir, thank you for making the time. Glad you're here.
Oh, thank you for continuing to do this. It's been a fascinating series of conversations, and I'm looking forward to participating today as well.
We're going to have a great conversation for sure. First, I would be remiss if I did not thank Tour Operator Land. Tour Operator Land has been our sponsor for all of our webinars, which could not have happened without them. So Betsy Cooper, I know you're on the call, and thank you for continuing to sponsor with us. So a couple of housekeeping notes before we get going. Obviously, we have the chat. Chat box, you know, we certainly are going to pay attention to. Let us know how you are. Pop in some questions if you have them. But it's really easier for us to keep all of the questions in one place with the Q&A button. So if you could pop all of your questions in there, we'll make sure we get to as many of them as we can. And if we don't get to a question, everyone has graciously agreed to answer them at a later date, and we will email it out to everyone. This call is being recorded, and we will have it up for on-demand viewing probably about an hour after we're done with the call. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started, and I am going to let each of the panelists talk a little bit about the association and the show and see how they're doing. So Carylann, let's start with you.
Great. Well, it's really great to be here this afternoon. And I heard, Sherry, that you were just a baby when you joined CTIS. So I've heard some stories about those early beginnings.
Oh, no. We don't share those stories.
Well, CTIS is certainly the Student Youth Travel Association, and it's really bittersweet to be on the call. I just let everybody know that we just sent out our official cancellation notice for the conference this August. So we were scheduled to be in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I think what's really bittersweet is when we first started the process, of course, how many of you have held your annual conferences in Winnipeg, Manitoba? So it was a new destination for everyone. It was exciting to build towards introducing this great location. We had so many great partners, and we really came out of last year with a lot of momentum and excitement and had great registration numbers. But as certainly COVID hit, and I followed many of our colleagues in creating the messaging, hold on, we're gonna wait and see. So today officially we've had to cancel. And you know, one of the things that I think is so important about what we do is how the great partners in Winnipeg and Manitoba have worked with us to reschedule for 2023. So we're super excited to have everybody save those dates, and just want to give a nice shout out, you know, to those partners.
I know it's, as we mentioned earlier when we were talking, it's hard to press that button that you actually have to make the call on canceling. So I'm sorry you had to do that, but we're excited to certainly see CTIS in 2021. And I have no doubt the attendees on this call and the CTIS members are going to support us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pete, how's everything going with you?
Well, ABA is doing fine right now. You know, we are like everybody else. We've had to make some changes. We were blessed that we had our meeting already this year in January, so we've gotten through that hurdle. We're still on schedule to hold a meeting next January in Baltimore, Maryland. We do a couple of meetings, a lot of small ones, and then we do certainly our big meeting, our marketplace, every single year. And this coming January, we've actually added a new show. It's called Bus World. And it is an equipment show. It would take place, for the most part, right in front of Marketplace for 3 days in front, 1 day overlap, and then the Marketplace taking place after that. I will tell you that the industry is totally struggling. I mean, like everybody else, things have been mostly shut down. But as this group can appreciate, you know, group travel doesn't come back necessarily overnight. Those plans and arrangements have been made well in advance. So as things open up, you know, we're seeing a little trickle of movement here and there, but for the most part, you know, we've seen summer schedules pretty much be canceled. June and July, August trips are now being canceled. And we're concerned that by the end of the year, we could lose 25% of the motor coach industry if the trend continues. The big savior will be in the fall, obviously a big travel period. And for the motor coach side of the house, it depends whether students start traveling again, whether they do it as groups, whether they do it as part of sports teams or other events that are going on both college and high school. If those movements continue to take place, then the industry can make it through till next year. But if not, we'll lose an even greater percentage. So, you know, we're hanging in there right now. We're trying to monitor. We're helping our members as much as we can, doing a lot of education. And being aware, but we're also spending a lot of time and a lot of effort on Capitol Hill trying to get them some money to get through the
I was just going to ask about your rally. I know you're concerned about some of your membership and losing some of those bus companies, but you did do a rally recently.
Yeah,
and hopefully that got some attention.
It got a lot of attention. You know, we're pretty much convinced the way that this industry is going to survive is if they get some funding, not unlike what the airlines and Amtrak got a month or so ago. We're asking for $10 billion in grants and $5 billion in loans from the federal government. And given the fact that we move almost as many as the airlines and they got 50 billion in total, I think it's certainly a reasonable ask, and it would keep the industry afloat for another year. Without it, again, there's going to be challenges. And again, going back, without the student movement and some of the fall movement, there will be challenges. But the rally was a good rally point. It brought everybody together in town. We had over 800 buses that participated. It helped raise our visibility, not only in terms of Congress, but in terms of the media as well. So it was a great event. We're glad to be able to be a part of it.
I'm glad that it went so well. And I know there's ways that everyone on this call can get involved. And when we do our follow-up email, I'll make sure that all of those links are there. So you can continue to get the word out that the rally has started. And speaking of getting the word out, Malcolm Smith, U.S. Travel, doing quite a bit to rally for our industry. But tell us how IPW is shaping up and moving forward.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sherry. And I was seeing the list of people on the call. So many of you are supporters of IPW and really appreciative of that. And to Carylann and to Peter, I know that, pushing that cancellation button is tough. You spend years preparing for a show, working so closely with the host city, host state, for us, Brand USA as well. And you want to hold on to hope as long as you can. But you start seeing those shows before you falling like dominoes, and you just know it's your turn and you have to pull that plug. So I'm just hoping that this is something that we won't see carry into 2021. I was a little disheartened to see radiology canceled for end of November, early December in Chicago. There's a very large international audience there, but we just, you just hate to see it canceled that far out. We're really excited to see that Connect still has Marketplace on the calendar for August, and we are hoping as best we can that thing pulls off, because we need someone to be the first, and I think you guys would be great ones to do it. But it's not just IPW that's been impacted at U.S. Travel Association. It started with our Spring Meetings Week, which is our legislative fly-in in March-April timeframe. And now we have ESTO, which is our destination marketing conference at the end of August. Nan Marchand-Beauvoir and her team are really close to making a call on that. But it's really taken its toll. And for U.S. Travel Association, IPW is the largest generator of revenues for the association, which is truly an advocacy association, working so closely with our colleagues that are here on the call today. But advocacy is not inexpensive, and it seems when there's a crisis is when you got to be doing the most advocacy. And that's when people in this crisis, we completely understand, are struggling to stay afloat, struggling to keep people on payroll, and just trying to desperately get to recovery efforts. So we feel your pain, and we keep trying to plow ahead as best we can. And I'm sure later in the call we'll be able to share some resources that we have available to all of those involved. But we are thrilled that Las Vegas CVA, and I saw Chris Myers on the call, that first of all, they opened today again, Las Vegas. So congratulations, really exciting to see that. But was thrilled to be able to work with partners like Las Vegas CVA and Choose Chicago and Brand USA. So while we are getting to that time of cancellation, we're also working behind the scenes to do a little swapping around of some of our host city dates. Vegas was, and all their partners, they were ready to execute this event. We were there for a site visit last week of February, and they were just all systems go, and they could have turned it on the next day. And then of course, a few weeks later, we get into this situation. So Chicago, realizing that, graciously offered that they would step aside if Vegas wanted to step in and continue to execute with all their plans for 2021, which Vegas was thrilled to do. They get to feature their brand new West Hall expansion. Many new accommodations and attractions are opening up over this coming year. So it really is fortunate for them. And on the back end, for all of our delegates, we get treated to Chicago in 2025 at the end of June, which is absolutely spectacular time to be there. In fact, it's going to be the latest show we've had, but we've done mid to late June before in New Orleans, and that was a huge success. So we're really excited about this, and maybe it will be the first time the world comes together with all our U.S. travel exhibitors and partners, and has a pre-4th of July celebration.
I love that. So we're getting some questions on virtual, and I promise we're going to get to those in just a minute. But Mr. Seccombe, tell us what's going on with Connect Travel. We were fortunate, like Pete, to be able to get our conference in right under the wire.
Yeah, we've 2020 so far has been kind of year of the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? We got very fortunate to have our big Connect Travel Marketplace, and President Barack Obama speaking in Kissimmee in February. We followed the next week by our RTO event in LA, which was a really successful event. And then obviously we've had, went through some cancellations and actually canceled our Active America China show for the year. But that being said, we're very, very bullish on what's going to happen in 2021. 20 in the fall of this year. We've got, I think our partners or our parent company, Connect Meetings, has invested a tremendous amount of time, energy, resources, focusing on the Connect Safe and Smart plan and how we can, as an industry, come back and host meetings with one-on-one appointments and trade shows, and really rethink all of that with the kind of health protocols that I think are going to be really, really important as we move forward. So we're absolutely committed to having some events this fall, some big events with Connect Mega, our domestic tour show, on the travel side, international show as well, kind of a part 2 of our Connect Travel Marketplace. And then we've got another handful of events that are going to go on. Granted, they'll probably be smaller than we had last year and probably smaller than we would want, but we're going to continue on with our Thrive Summit, which is the forum for LGBTQ travel, sports, and entertainment. We're going to continue on with the Tourism Summit and celebrate our 21st year of that event, again, in a very different way. And I think, one of the lines that I've really kind of gravitated to is, when you have a time of universal disruption is the perfect time for reinvention. So we're looking at this as an opportunity, and we're very fortunate to have an ownership group that is totally totally embracing the travel and tourism industry and looks at our industry, while this is it's a horrible year for all of us in the industry, our industry is going to bounce back, and face-to-face meetings are going to be an important part of making that happen.
So I'm gonna call you out for just a minute because Active America China was rescheduled. So we were unfortunately not able to do it this year, but we have rescheduled it into next year. So it's all the verbiage, right? We like that language. So as you talked about clean and safe. So before we move to the virtual side of events, in person, this industry loves it. I can't imagine this industry without person-to-person events. What does an event look like? What does that clean and safe look like to get someone comfortable enough to head out to an event right now? I know what we've done. Will, I'm going to start with you. What are some of those things that we feel need to be in an event moving forward?
Well, it's going to be different, but the one thing that I can tell you is that I'm 100% convinced, kind of like post 9/11, we're going to see some new protocols for face-to-face meetings that are going to last for a long, long time. And we'll have to see which ones are adopted over the long term and which ones are just near term to get people comfortable, because I think that's the most important word. And we watch, I personally am spending a lot of time watching what is going to come out of Universal, who's opening this week, Disney, who's opening next month, because I think that'll be an indicator. But a lot of it is, or masks. What are the mask protocols? Are they required or mandatory? At Connect, we're going to have, a massive investment in, disinfecting everything, testing. I don't think we'll probably ever get on a plane again or go into a conference or a conference center without, temperature checks, and just making sure that we're only letting healthy people in. At Connect, we've got plexiglass stands in between the one-on-one appointments, spreading out the tables to have social distancing, doubling the size of the aisles so that there's more room. The days of us having, the big sit down, lunch is probably gone, and probably going to open it up to more prepackaged food and more space that'll be allocated to something like that. So a lot of changes are going to come to the industry. I think our industry will might be the same way as the events were that we remember so fondly, but I think we as an industry will be pretty forgiving and be really thankful to have the opportunity to be one-on-one again and be with our friends, because this is an industry that relies on relationships.
Absolutely. Pete, knowing your conference is moving forward as scheduled next year, I know you've been having the conversations. Anything you can share about safety or safe and clean protocols that are going to be put into place?
Well, I think as Will described, right, we're all going through this at the same time and at the same pace. We're learning from the convention centers and from our vendors, because they're all in the same boat with us, trying to figure it out. Whether it's AV vendor or whether it's pipe and drape vendor, what are they doing? What are they seeing other groups doing? We're looking forward to seeing your meeting, seeing what happens at Connect, because you will be one of the first shows that have taken place probably since ours in January of any consequence. So it'll be interesting to watch that and see what the requirements are. I mean, Will's right on track. I mean, there will be protocols in place that we're all going to follow for a period of time, certainly until there's a vaccination or something else that comes along that makes people feel that much more comfortable that they can do business in a way that they felt comfortable doing it before. You know, we don't necessarily have the formula for that, how that's going to work. The one thing that we do have in Baltimore are a set of alternative dates. So if for any reason, you know, we see COVID continue through the fall and into the first of the year, even before then, we'll make a decision on whether or not we may move forward with the January dates or we move everybody to a little later time in the year. But we are prepared to do that if we have to.
I think that's going to become commonplace as we're placing events these days. So that's super smart of you. CA, this is a total, like you just canceled, you just press the button to cancel your event. So I might be asking you way too soon on this, but I think CITA is the most huggy conference I've ever been to before. So that's going to be really, really hard. I don't even know what the new handshake is. We're going to have to come up with one. But anything you guys are talking about with the board or staff there on how you change things, tweak things to make it a little safer or cleaner?
Well, you know, it's interesting when Pete was talking about getting students back to school. I think for us, what we're also looking at is how public schools will be opening, how are kids going to get back on buses? You know, how are the schools going to be moving groups of kids? I think what they learn will also help us in the meetings industry, looking at how universities are going to be addressing how they manage their students. And, you know, in the higher ed area, they're doing a lot of discussions around creating groups and cohorts of people moving around together. So could we possibly envision a day that has everybody with a yellow badge moving together, you know, on the show floor, moving into meeting spaces? Is that possibly one way? So they talk about how then you can trace the people you've been grouped into, so that you have a better way should somebody get sick, you know exactly who you came into contact with. I've heard about a badge that flashes red if somebody has a temperature near you, or somebody gets within 6 feet of you. So potentially on your badge, the red lights start going off if somebody is too close. That there's some new technology that we're watching. And I just was on another call where at the ITB in Germany, they were looking at one way up and one way down the show floors. So using all of what we've seen at the Walmarts and the Costco's to actually logistically move you through trade show floors. So we're watching and listening and looking at even other industries and what they're sharing about how we can all connect and get back together, you know, for our meetings for the future. I'm not sure how to replace the hug yet, though. I
know.
You know, I'm going to work on that one.
To cut it. I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Malcolm, collectively, all of our shows put together are still smaller than yours. So how do you do this with 6,000 people?
Well, the first thing I was going to say after listening to Carylann and Peters is that we are fortunate that we're a whole year away, and you all. I mean, you all are going to be the canary in the coal mine, so to say. But it's going to be so important that we all support one another, because we do need to learn from each other on what practices are effective, how did they work, how did you implement them. It's really critical. So I'm really hoping, by May of next year, we've all as an industry got this streamlined and have people feeling confident. But one thing that U.S. Travel is doing now that we didn't have IPW to focus on is really focusing on getting the American public feeling confident to travel again, and really putting a lot of effort into recovery efforts, working with our membership and our partners and our fellow associations, because if we can't get Americans to travel in general, we're not going to get them into a convention center or a meeting room. But we've had some really great success stories, that we heard already today about some of the theme parks opening and so forth, Las Vegas Strip reopening. We have a lot of research that's free to members and non-members alike on our website at ustravel.org It's listed under the COVID travel industry research, but some really good real-time tracking there that we're working with a lot of our research and data partners, who I know so many of you work with. But it's a great location to go, and you can find information such as weekly analysis update of what's happening in travel and travel spending. You can view the tracking of search and booking engines, which is a product by Adara, daily trends tracking by Arrival List, which is car movements, consumer sentiments that are updated, I believe, weekly by Destination Analysis, and more. So it's really a great source of research of what's happening. Again, and so much of this is real time or within the past week, which is so critical, because I know for all of us, when you go and do a search engine, if the results you're not pulling are within the last 48 hours, it's almost not relevant. So we need timely information, and we have that there. And then the other really key thing is the travel industry guidance for health and safety that we worked with a lot of our fellow associations on. But even more importantly is that we pulled in health and medical experts with this. And this is also a guideline and a toolkit that you can get on our website, whether you're a member or non-member. And it really is helping our industry, whether you are ground transportation, motor coach, hotel, meeting venue, anyone in the whole travel experience and travel ecosystem. It's 6 basic guidelines to follow to help us when we reopen. And the idea is that we have to make it consistent across the entire travel ecosystem. If the motor coaches are doing all the right things and the hotels are doing all the right things for the guests who are coming, but then they go to a meeting space or they go to a museum or attraction and they don't have right protocols in place, it's all for naught. You've kind of contaminated, one link can contaminate the entire experience. So we really encourage people to look at that. We'll continue to update that as we get more guidance and as times change, and so many cities and states are moving already now into phase 2 of lockdown restrictions and people getting out moving about. So again, we're trying to keep things as current as possible, but the getting our folks, our Americans, fellow Americans, comfortable to move again with the right assurances, and to make sure that our partners and our members and our industry are doing all the precautions they can is critical. And here we are in summertime, so let's make sure we move forward safely and successfully.
Absolutely. I love how this industry is coming together, and each association is working together to make sure that we move forward in the right way. And you couldn't be more right when you say that things are changing daily. So to that point, Will, one of the questions after you talked about safe and clean is, do you think the changes, wider aisles, plexiglass, no meals, maybe limited guest speakers, is it permanent, or is it just for a period of time?
I would say that not all of them will be permanent. Something will sell out, but the life as we know it will change for the next 20 years. And if you just think through, 19 years ago, Richard Reed tried to blow up a plane with a shoe bomb, and today we're still taking our shoes off to go through security. So the way bureaucracy works is going to mandate that some of this stuff kind of becomes more permanent. And I think the social distancing, I think generally speaking, I don't know if masks become permanent, but I do know that I don't think we'll get in, you will be get your temperature checked. And I think that'll be something that is new. I think the touchless transactions is going to be something that will most likely be a permanent fixture in our everyday lives. So I think we'll see, several things that will last for a long, long time. Will we start to get more comfortable in bigger groups? Clearly, we're seeing that just now, and some of the protests. People want to be with people, and I think that is so powerful a part of human nature that we're never gonna, we're not gonna isolate at home for the rest of our lives. We're going to get back together as humanity, and I think it's going to be really important for our industry and for the meetings exhibition space, certainly in travel, to be a big part of helping that come together. So how can we do it safely? How can we make sure that those cleanliness protocols, I think, will be around forever? Nobody wants to get on a plane with somebody's coughing next to them, COVID or not. So You know, I think you'll see a lot of that in the transportation sector and the hotel sector and the big box convention center sector. It's going to be a cleaner experience, a lot less, you know, touching. And I think that'll be around forever.
And I think it's things that, you know, are happening in other countries. It just hasn't happened here yet. So I think we'll, as Will mentioned, we'll see things move forward that way. And as things are changing daily, hourly, we'll reevaluate like we always do moving forward.
Yeah, I can add to that point. I mean,
Absolutely.
a big part of IPW is our luncheons, where we keep the entire delegation together and put on New York brings Broadway, and Kissimmee has been bringing, and Universal has been bringing artists, and Brand USA as well. It's a big part of the show, and it's a unique aspect that we talk about quite a bit. But May of 2021, is it going to be likely that we can have an exhibit hall packed with 10 tops placed as closely as the fire marshal will allow? It would be nice if we can, but I think the odds of that are it's going to be challenged at best. And, you know, we're going to have to make some of these decisions well in advance. You can't wait until, you know, 60, 90 days to make a call on doing some very large change to part of your event that's, you know, in the DNA. So I think it's going to be interesting how, you know, when you have to make some of these changes to your tried and true experience, you know, a lot of times that's good. It's evolution. And then you kind of see, where does it evolve from there? I mean, we're already talking internally, you know, with the appointment scheduling system, we have everyone releasing to lunch at the same time. That's 6,000 people moving all at once. That's not a good thing these days. So, you know, is there a way to stagger appointments? So, you know, people are going in, out in phases and returning in different phases. So there's not the full crossover. It's really looking, you know, we haven't had the opportunity yet to see the West Hall expansion in Las Vegas, but can't wait to get out there and really look at it, because as planners, we're going to be going in with a whole new set of eyes. You know, every convention center, when you have a show or in a hotel in the meeting area, there's always dead space, right? There's areas that you don't want to use or you don't need. I think that's going to change, because we're going to be spacing everything out as much as possible. So I think we're going in with a whole new set of eyes and going to be so much more creative, looking at outdoor space. You know, we're fortunate we're going to be in Vegas in May next year. So the possibility of doing something outdoors during those lunch hours is feasible. So it's really taking a new look at things and then see how they work, how they you know, what's the feedback you get on it, and does this temporary turn more permanent, because it might be something that delegates actually like.
Exactly. It is the time to reinvent if you need to reinvent. We have a lot of questions about virtual. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, Sherry, I just wanted to build on what Malcolm said, you know, thinking about those who have smaller meetings and now needing more space. Typically the cost and the price, right? The factor was the more space you take, the more guest rooms you need. You know, we're used to a meetings model that was built into space and cost. And now, you know, no matter what your size, you're going to need more space. And as an industry, how are we going to maybe accommodate some of those extra costs, some of those extra needs, knowing that our travel members have just gone through a really difficult time? And how do we price everything? You know, how do we provide all that safety and security and needs at the same time, hopefully be able to keep our prices where everybody can still participate? And so I think that's a whole nother factor that many of us have to, you know, put into the equation moving forward.
Absolutely. And we actually have a question about that. You know, to your point, Carylann, it's bad enough. It's going to be hard for big convention centers and a hotel package, but a single hotel piece of business with a rooms to space ratio, they're rewriting the rules right now at every convention center and every hotel that has space. So I think we'll see a lot of changes coming out with that. One of the questions that from Floyd, thanks Floyd, we have is specifically about pricing. And her question is, moving forward, you know, so especially DMOs, their budgets have been slashed even into 2021. So she's curious as to what may happen with pricing with the shows. And I'm going to go to Pete, because you just came out with some pricing updates for next year. So I think everyone's thinking about it, but Pete, what are you doing at ABA?
Yeah, we're changing the model a little bit. Obviously, we number one, we held prices, same price as what you paid in the past, but you can also bring as many people as you want for one price. So it's going to be a company price as opposed to an individual price. So if you're coming from a hotel or from a CVB or an attraction, you want to bring one appointment taker, you still get one book. But if you have 5 other people that want to come with you for whatever reason, you bring those 5 people all under that same one price the appointment taker's paying. So it's something different. It's a way that we think we can be more helpful. We know that people are struggling. We're also looking right now at our whole dues structure and seeing if we can make some changes there that'll make it a little bit easier for people to be able to afford to belong to an association. So those are 2 of the things that we're doing on a going forward basis.
That's amazing. And anyone else want to jump in with pricing and any changes that might be taking place for next year?
Absolutely. We had already some discussions with Freeman about giving exhibitors easier options and cheaper options just to have a basic setup. You know, I think for 2021 at IPW, it's more important that we reunite the industry than necessarily spending a ton of money on what we've been able to do in a good economy, which is booths and, you know, private entertaining and all that. It's more important that we get together and start conducting business and start moving forward. So I think it's okay, again, for people when they come to the shows that are reopening or had to cancel or postponed, if it doesn't look like exactly how they remember it, that's not the important part. The important part is getting people together and getting our industry on the road to recovery. Our plan now, we're not opening registration until the fall now. Typically we'd be open year round, but we just need a little bit of time to assess. The idea is to hold rates flat. But also this year too, we introduced a new exhibiting option called the Express booth, which was designed for small DMOs. It was intended for individual properties or smaller attractions. It didn't get a whole bunch of traction this year because we introduced it kind of late, but I think that will be another exhibiting option for 21 that people might want to consider. And we will continue to have one-on-one conversations and advisory group meetings as the months progress to see what options need to be out there for people to be able to participate, because that's more important to me than all the flash right now.
So another question has come in regarding sponsorships, and do you think sponsorship dollars are going to be available at the same level, and what impact is it going to have on the show if they're not? I think all of us collectively know that sponsorship dollars aren't going to be available at the same level. So let's focus on the back half of that conversation and what does the show look like? And CA, what do you think?
Well, I think that in watching many of the associations who are doing hybrid models, virtual and in person, that maybe potentially your sponsorship model will be one that's extended to outside of the meeting itself. Many of us have sponsorships that go year round, but I could see a sponsorship that is virtual, much more virtual, so that at the conference, you may not see everybody and getting all those eyeballs in one big conference room, but you will see that sponsor having opportunities, I think, throughout the year through different virtual ways of extending education and speakers. And I think we have to get more creative about how we offer those digital opportunities to our sponsors and our partners. And on the flip side, we might be offering more sustainable sponsorship models. If we're not building lots of things and signage on site, maybe digitally, we can be much more sustainable about what we're offering our sponsors. So I see some really exciting opportunities at the same time coming out of this in how we move forward.
I love that. And talking, digital presence that's going to move us into a virtual conversation. A lot of the questions that we're getting for things that have been rescheduled or canceled for this year, are there going to be a virtual option, or is there a virtual option? And then how does that affect pricing on a virtual side? That's some of the questions combined that we're getting here. So Will, I'm going to start with you. You've been quiet there for a little while, but I know that we have a cool virtual experience coming in the fall. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this, I mean, there's obviously so many kind of moving parts right now, and with a lot of our events and dates and times and everything, and I'm sure everybody's dealing with that, but we're getting close to wrapping up our game of Tetris. But a couple of great examples. I've been really inspired by this series that you've been leading, Sherry, and the engagement has been really amazing. I mean, we've had I think like 5,000 people register for these since we started. About 4,000 people actually show up. Over 2,000 individuals have participated. And while it's not the hugs that you get at a CITA conference, it is engagement and good conversation. And so really seeing a lot of value come out of this. And so we're looking, again, how can we be creative and innovative in disruptive times? So one of our events, the eTourism Summit, which is the premier digital tourism marketing conference for tourism marketers, is celebrating our 21st year. We were hoping to celebrate in Seattle at the campus of Expedia and explore a lot of the great Seattle tourism marketing companies and partner there, but that's just not really going to be feasible. I don't see any major tech company inviting a bunch of strangers on the campus. So we're going to postpone that till next year. We're going to host a hybrid event for eTourism Summit this year. So we'll have our 2 days of a live event. We'll be announcing the date and location of that here, I think next week. We're also going to announce a new virtual program. So we're going to have 21 days of 1-hour webinars as well. And so we can bring some of that content to the people, I saw like Foy said, that can't travel. And again, the content is more important today than it ever has been. The way we market and communicate and talk to travelers is everybody in the industry is starting at a dead stop, and now we're all starting to grow at the same time. So we'll have 21 days of virtual, we'll have 2 days of live. We've held our pricing. We actually cut our pricing back for the live event. We've added individual packages to do the virtual experience. We've added DMO or business packages so everybody in the corporation can attend the virtual events. And one that I'm most excited about that we'll be announcing again next week is a community pass. So a DMO could subscribe to the virtual series and make it available to all the marketers within their community. Again, trying to provide a cost-effective professional development tool to help everybody in the marketing ecosystem in those communities kind of come out of this and get the learnings that otherwise maybe just 1 or 2 people from the DMO would have gotten at a live experience. And our goal there is, instead of having 300 live people, we'll probably see, half of the number of live people we normally would, but hopefully we'll get, a couple thousands participating and learning as part of the eTourism Summit. So I think that's one way that you can kind of think through the hybrid virtual model.
Awesome. So I do think that we'll start seeing more virtual sides of things. And Malcolm, IPW Marketplace has been open for a few days now.
Right. Yeah, that's a tool that we typically open about a month before the show, is the IPW Online Marketplace and the Online Press Room. But we thought this is a great opportunity to open it a full year in advance, get people excited about 21, but more importantly, allow our delegates to stay connected. There's so much information that the exhibitors need to get out on phases of reopening and what's happening in their destinations or at their attraction, at their property, that this is an awesome platform to keep people engaged. So we ran a daily alert Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this week. That would have been the days we would have been live on our show floor doing appointments. So kind of keeping people connected there. And then based on kind of how many people are using this and so forth, we're planning at least quarterly alert going out to kind of keep it on top of people's mind. But if people are really engaged with this platform, we might bump that up to even monthly. So while we're not looking to create a virtual trade show this year, we are using that technology to keep people connected. And then we also have our IPW daily digital versions. What was going to be the spring edition, we were able to repurpose for a 2021 preview, and that went out on Friday. So look for us to keep sending things that would kind of keep the delegates connected more often and earlier than we would have in a traditional year. And hopefully that creates some value. It's a free opportunity for anyone who is registered at IPW this year, whether they paid or not, whether they asked for a refund or carried over their money or not, can access the IPW Online Marketplace and Press Room. So encourage people to take advantage of that.
Perfect. And Carylann, there's a question specifically for CITA. want to know if there's any virtual something that will happen in place of the show this year, or some type of connection. Huggy bunch. I told you guys, very huggy bunch. So they want to know if there is any type of virtual option that CITA is looking at.
No, that's a great question. And, you know, as we were taking apart the conference, so certainly we're still going to have some fun this year and still hold our Broadway lunch, which would be a big celebration on the Monday of the conference. So we're still going to try and bring everybody for that luncheon where we announce our officers and do some speeches and have a bit of programming. So we're going to take like the Broadway lunch and our foundation luncheon where we fundraise for all of the kids that we help. So we're going to take two of those major events and create a virtual experience. And then in the fall, October, November, look at doing 2 days of business appointments. And I think what's a little bit unique now is I've been hearing from our members is that even though we may not be booking student tours, I'm hopeful that's not the case for the spring, they still want to get an update on everything that's happening. So when I look at our DMOs and our CVBs, we're seeing a group appointment essentially where they're going to be able to share what's new, what's open, how we're going to be able to build itineraries, what are some of the multiple options. So even if you're not walking away with a contract or a piece of business, we're looking at that as appointment as more informational in a group setting, casual setting where, you know, what we need is an update, because certainly traveling young people, you know, we're going to be after the adults once they can go, and we're very much supported by what's open, what attractions are open, Broadway open. And so we're not sure where that'll be in the fall, but I do know everybody wants to get an update and connect with each other. And the one other piece that I was thinking about is I know so many of our colleagues have been furloughed, and we anticipate, you know, on the unemployment and all that for so many of our colleagues in the fall. And we've been really thinking about how we're going to keep those people engaged. They've been such great supporters, and I know some of our colleagues have created a registry, but we want to make sure that we find a way to include them in whatever meetings and appointments and things that we have going on, and how as an industry, we help them get back on their feet. So that's just something else I think that we should add to our meetings is how do we include those who may not be working right now or at the time of those events.
I love that you said that, and there's actually a question that relates to that on if any of us, any of the associations or shows are taking into consideration those that are furloughed, not back in, and might be looking for opportunities. So I'm going to come to you with that, Pete, but I also know that virtually you're doing a webinar series that's great and reaching a lot of people as well. So if you could touch on what you're doing virtually and if there's any programming that's out there for people trying to get back into the industry.
Well, yeah, I'll answer the last question first. Absolutely. We want to open our doors up to anybody who's been a part of the family, part of the ABA family or the industry for all these years and is now in a difficult situation. So, you know, the more the merrier. Bring them on to Baltimore next year. On the virtual side, I mean, it's interesting. We all operate with the same platform. We have the same systems that we utilize for our appointment software, same thing that IPW uses and that CITA uses. So we're following probably a little bit of the IPW model. We're going to open up with virtual appointments, or not virtual appointments, but virtual opportunities to network and connect buyers and sellers together. We're testing one group, one state group in the next couple of days, actually, to make sure it's working the way we hope it will or that we believe it will. And then on a going forward basis for the rest of the year, we'll have a virtual component that will augment the in-person. I mean, this is such a unique industry, as you pointed out, I think in the very beginning, and not doing business face-to-face is just not what we do. I mean, especially when you're in the group business. You're handing off a group of 50 people to a hotel, to a theater, to a restaurant. You want to be able to look that person in the face and know that they're going to take care of your group and feel very, very comfortable with them and that they understand your needs. It's not just, you know, going online and reserving a ticket somewhere. So that component, I think, of the way we do business will continue for a long, long time. in the group business. And while, you know, virtual is not necessarily ideal as compared to in-person, it does supplement and does augment the in-person portion. So we'll keep that going forward. I mean, we're doing tons of webinars on a regular basis beyond that to keep people connected, just as you're doing here and as other groups are doing.
And I love the webinars that we can see each other's faces, right? It's just nice. And I even really love that I can just see everyone's name that logs in, and we'll see each other in person soon. So Hardy, hello, Michael Hardy. He also on the virtual side is asking that, you know, don't we think that the benefits of virtual will allow for safety, creative revenue options? He's thinking of things like game settings that are really cool and affordable. As we know that virtual options are going to stay with us for a while, are we looking at anything like that from a sponsorship revenue perspective? What are some creative ways that can happen? Will?
Great question. It opens up a lot of opportunities for events, and I think, you know, we've had questions about sponsors. Are sponsors still going to come and participate? Absolutely, yes. You know, business. We're in a situation where everybody in the travel industry's ground to a halt, and while we're all going to start opening up varying degrees by whatever country we're in, or state we're in, or city we're in, and the different politics that are at play. But virtually everybody's going to start competing for travelers, for a limited number of travelers at the same time. So it's going to be big challenges on marketing, big challenges on messaging, big challenges all the way around. But all of us here are in the funnel building business. And how do we create demand? And the fact that we are providing opportunities to grow not only current business, but future business, and kind of get that funnel going. People are going to have money to do that. I think ROI and KPIs of meetings may change a little bit. I mean, people are going to start demanding a little bit more accountability for what's happening. So I think, and we'll have to come up with some new ways to help facilitate kind of communicating that and communicating the value that they're getting from our investments. But I do think that people are going to have to work harder than they've ever had before. I mean, for the last 10 years, it's been year over year, record growth. And if you just by the nature, half of the destinations in the world were growing and losing market share at the same time, right? Because some are growing faster than average and some are growing a little slower than average, but they were all going up. So people are going to have to be a lot smarter in how they spend. They're going to be held more accountable. And the fact that what we do is fill the funnel and provide tangible new business opportunities. The events business is going to be fine, but people are going to have to work harder, for a lot harder in the next few years.
This industry has some of the most creative people I have ever met. That's why I've stayed in it for so long. So I think we're up for the challenge, and certainly we'll be working with each other to make sure that we can get through that. Yep. Quick question about supply and demand. We've talked about some of the programs that we're doing to help people and pricing and maintaining price. One of the specific questions was about Connect and an event that we're going to hold late summer. What do we think the attendance is going to be like? Are we concerned with budgets being cut, and are we concerned with supply and demand?
This year, for sure, certainly not anticipating the same size of an event as we would have normally from our mega events. We're going to be making some tweaks to that. Obviously, doing on the meetings side, the meetings team is doing a great job of providing a lot more value. Multiple tracks for the price of one, kind of a thing. And so we recognize that it's going to be smaller, but for us as a company, it's really critically important to be the one that leads the industry back and proves that we can have a safe meeting, show that meetings can be done safely and efficiently, and still be kind of the business generating machine that they think it is. So it'll be smaller. I expect all of our events and the remaining events we're planning on holding. So between the domestic tour show, round 2 of an international show, eTourism Summit, the Thrive Summit, we have 2 RTO summits still coming. Again, dates are moving around so we can fit everything in, not layer on top of each other, but all of them will be a little bit smaller. And I expect next year they'll be a little bit smaller than we would have projected 6 months ago. It's going to take some time to get budgets and everything going back, but and they'll be more expensive for the operators to put on. But ultimately, this industry is going to continue to grow. It's too important a piece of the kind of the travel ecosystem that, you know, we'll bounce back and thrive again.
Couldn't agree more. And I was gonna pose the question to Malcolm, Pete, and Carylann about 2021. And Jim, thanks for the question. Jim thinks that, hey, if there's a vaccine in 2021, does that make things get better, or are we still gonna see some of those numbers fluctuate because of budget? Carylann, what do you think?
Well, I was just thinking too, you know, what an impact the airline lift will have. So, you know, even if we do get a vaccine, you keep reading about the airlines and the availability of the flights, you know, to get in and out of all of these meetings and destinations. So that'll probably be a factor. I do think too that we're still going to be slow to grow in 21, because I think our customers, our sponsors, our attendees are still going to be looking at, were they able to do business virtually without us? You know, I think there's going to be some investment in their time and dollars in 21, and they're going to be looking to us to keep innovating. And so I think you may have, it still be a year of learning, but by 22 and 23, I think the key is if our end customers are back traveling, much to Malcolm's point, if our customers are back traveling, you know, and the people, you know, across the country, then I think it'll have a lot more positive impact on our meetings. But I look forward to 21 being a good year for all of us to get back together and figure out how we're still going to meet, you know, for the future. But I think the airline piece of it's important as well.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Malcolm?
Yeah, I think it's going to be big pent up demand for people to get together, to travel, and to meet in 2021. I think a reality that all of us are going to have to deal with is there's going to be a lot more wait and see. Wait and see on your budget, wait and see what's happening in the world, wait and see if this experiment that the United States and other countries are doing now with easing lockdown is successful. Mm-hmm. So I think that is an unfortunate reality. And I know both my colleagues all the colleagues on the call talked about safe meetings are going to be more expensive. So that it is going to be challenging. But I think, and from what I'm hearing, if people can travel and they have the means to travel and attend events, they're going to do it in 21. If there's a vaccine, that's all the better. But we've got to find a way to get people to safely be able to travel and have experiences even without a vaccine in place. And even if it does come, you know, how long will it take to get whole U.S. inoculated, the world, and so forth? You know, there could be countries next year that have flare-ups that could impact a delegation coming to IPW, for instance. So there's just, yeah, I think we're just going to be progressing in 21 with a lot of uncertainty, a lot of last-minute decision-making, but a human desire to want to connect badly.
I couldn't agree more. I think the key phrase for next year is going to be nimble. We're gonna have to be able to think on our feet and move quickly. It's almost 2 o'clock. Like, we have a minute, and I knew this was going to happen. This goes by so quickly. A couple of more questions out there, talking about links and how they get the information. I'll share all of the links about the virtual things coming up and research information and data. That will be on our follow-up email. So I'll make sure that I have all of that from everyone. Contact information for all of our panelists, of course. So very quickly, because we have like a minute before we're supposed to be done, final thoughts. How can the industry support you? Final thoughts on events moving forward. We're going to start with Pete.
A couple of things, and I'm going to go back to your previous question. I'll answer this one first. How do we support? We support one another, right? I don't think that any one of us necessarily need specific support, but we all need support. We all need to do it together. We all need to move forward together. I'm a little more bearish on the future in terms of what the shows look like, or certainly what our show looks like anyway. I mean, if there is a vaccine, it's a game changer for everybody, right? Nobody worries about mumps or measles or polio or any of that, right? So a vaccine is a game changer, and we start to drift back to normal, notwithstanding, you know, there will be some changes in the way we do meetings for the future. There's no question about it. But we also think that people want to do business. I mean, they're going to want to come out of this doing business more than they ever have. They're going to want to be together again. We think our show is going to be very, very strong, in part because we know that people have limited dollars and they're going to have to make a choice. And we're actually advertising the show that this is the one that you need to go to. If you need to go to one domestic show in 2021, come to ABA. Simple, plain fact. So we're excited about it. We're looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it as well. CA, any last minute thoughts?
You know, just that there are so many people on the call that to keep sending your personal emails so that we can keep you in touch with everything that we're doing. And I can't wait because we're August. So we're gonna let all of you guys get through this coming year and we'll be back with a bang. And super excited to be in New York City, because if I could support any city, and we could, I think New York really will deserve it, and hope to see everybody there.
Wonderful. Malcolm, final thoughts.
Great. Just love seeing everyone staying engaged. The Carolann's comment too. U.S. travel, if you're furloughed, we can put you on our distribution list too, so you can get advocacy updates, travel recovery updates. So please, you can send that my way. I know that Sherry will get all that out to you, and I'll make sure it gets in the right hands. But stay involved. Keep an eye on the airlines. I just saw today that American announced they are ramping up flights due to demand in July. So there is good news out there. Allegiant had some very good news last week on a Visit St. Pete Clearwater call. Keep an eye on them. Let's get people traveling again, and let's do it safely.
I love it. Mr. Seccombe, final thoughts.
No, Sherry, thanks for pulling this together. It's been encouraging conversations, and just love the fact that this industry is all about working together, and this is a great example of that. So thank you very much, and thanks to everybody, Carylann and Peter and Malcolm. I appreciate you guys being on this.
Absolutely. Thanks to all of our panelists for being on the call. For all of our attendees, we will have key takeaways, links, everything that you need, and a recording of this to share with your peers and your team members, emailed out to you either tomorrow or Monday morning. So look for that. Let us know if you have any questions. You can email any of us directly. We'll share all of our emails with you and contact information. I thank you for being on the call. We do have some great panels next week. On Wednesday, June 10th, we have a great marketing webinar that's going to talk about following the numbers and the data. How do you recover using those numbers and really where it's steering us? And on June 11th, we are focusing back on tour operators, and we're going to talk to some domestic tour operators. We are really, really excited to have Charlene from Breakaway Tours, Suzanne Slavater from Sports Empire, Joey from MJ Tour, from Moustache Tours, and Gary from Vacations by Rail. So make sure you tune in next week, and we can hear a little bit more about, now that things are opening up, what those domestic tour operators are looking at for the fall and moving forward. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe, and thank you for tuning in, and have a great weekend. Talk soon.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Everyone.